JonBenet Patricia Ramsey was born on August 6, 1990, in Atlanta, Georgia, into a family that, at the time, appeared loving, successful, and deeply connected. Her father, John Ramsey, was a respected businessman serving as president of Access Graphics, while her mother, Patsy Ramsey, was a former Miss West Virginia whose background in pageantry shaped much of JonBenet's early public life. From the outside, the Ramseys lived a life of comfort and opportunity, later settling in Boulder, Colorado, where their large home reflected years of professional success. JonBenet was known as a bright, affectionate, and energetic child who loved music, dancing, and being around others. Those who knew her often described her as joyful and expressive, with a personality that filled a room. She was not just a public figure through pageants, but a 6-year-old girl cherished deeply by her family, whose life was tragically cut short. Family life before the tragedy. Within the Ramsey household, JonBenet was surrounded by family connections that shaped her short life. She had an older brother, Burke Ramsey, 3 years her senior, as well as 2 older half-siblings from her father's previous marriage. This blended family dynamic created a home that balanced youthful energy with maturity and structure. The Ramseys were actively involved in their children's lives, encouraging education, hobbies, and shared family time. Friends and acquaintances described the household as busy yet affectionate, with parents who showed pride in their children's accomplishments. JonBenet attended kindergarten in Boulder, where she enjoyed learning and socializing like many children her age. Despite later public narratives, those close to the family recalled moments of normalcy, school routines, holidays, and shared meals that defined their daily lives. It was within this ordinary family setting that an extraordinary tragedy would soon unfold, altering everything forever. The world of pageants and public attention. JonBenet's participation in child beauty pageants became one of the most publicly discussed aspects of her life. Introduced to pageantry by her mother, she competed in events that emphasized performance, confidence, and stage presence. JonBenet appeared comfortable in the spotlight, often smiling brightly and performing with enthusiasm that many found captivating. She won several local titles, which brought her recognition beyond her immediate community. While pageants were a source of joy and bonding for JonBenet and her mother, they also placed her in the public eye at a very young age. In later years, this visibility became a focal point of media scrutiny, sometimes overshadowing her identity as a child first and foremost. At the time, however, pageantry was simply one part of her life, alongside school, family, and play, and not the defining feature it would later become in public discourse. Christmas night that changed everything. The early hours of December 26, 1996, marked the beginning of one of the most haunting cases in American history. That morning, Patsy Ramsey discovered a handwritten note on the staircase of the family's home, claiming that JonBenet had been taken and demanding a ransom. Alarmed and terrified, the family contacted authorities immediately. Law enforcement arrived and began responding under the assumption of a kidnapping, a decision that would later be widely debated. Hours later, during a search of the home, JonBenet was found deceased in the basement. The shock of this discovery devastated the family and transformed the case instantly from a missing child investigation into a homicide. The tragedy unfolded within the family's own home, creating layers of confusion, grief, and unanswered questions that would follow the Ramseys and the public for decades. The ransom note and lingering questions. The ransom note discovered in the Ramsey home quickly became one of the most puzzling elements of the case. Its length, tone, and specific monetary demand set it apart from typical ransom communications. Analysts debated its wording, structure, and intent, yet no definitive conclusions were ever reached. The note raised questions but provided few concrete answers, becoming symbolic of the larger mystery surrounding JonBenet's death. Over time, interpretations of the note varied widely. often influenced by speculation rather than confirmed evidence. What remains clear is that the note failed to lead to further contact or resolution, deepening uncertainty rather than clarifying events. For investigators and the public alike, it became a focal point of frustration, a piece of evidence that promised meaning but delivered none. Even decades later, the ransom note continues to represent the unresolved nature of the case itself. Media frenzy and public judgment. As news of JonBenet's death spread, media coverage intensified at an unprecedented pace. What began as a tragic story quickly evolved into constant national and international attention. The Ramsey family found themselves under relentless scrutiny, with speculation often presented alongside reporting. Television specials, tabloid headlines, and public debates fueled narratives that were not always grounded in verified facts. This environment created lasting consequences, particularly for Burke Ramsey, who grew up under a cloud of suspicion despite never being charged with any wrongdoing. The media spotlight transformed private grief into public spectacle, blurring the line between investigation and entertainment. Over time, the family became symbols within a larger cultural obsession with true crime, rather than individuals navigating profound loss. This atmosphere made healing nearly impossible and ensured that the case would remain embedded in public consciousness long after initial investigations stalled. DNA evidence and shifting perspectives. Advancements in forensic science in the early 2000s introduced new developments in the case. DNA samples collected from JonBenet's clothing were found to belong to an unidentified individual, not matching any known family members. This discovery prompted a re-evaluation of earlier assumptions and led authorities to publicly acknowledge that the evidence did not implicate the Ramseys. While the DNA findings did not identify a suspect, they shifted the conversation away from certainty toward possibility. The results underscored how incomplete early forensic technology had been and highlighted the importance of revisiting cold cases with modern tools. For the Ramsey family, these findings offered partial relief, but not closure. The absence of definitive answers remained, reinforcing the reality that scientific progress can clarify some questions while leaving others painfully unresolved. Burke Ramsey's life in silence. Burke Ramsey was just 9 years old when his sister died, yet the impact of that night followed him into adulthood. For most of his life, he avoided public appearances, interviews, and media engagement, choosing privacy over visibility. This silence was often misinterpreted, contributing to unfounded speculation rather than understanding. Growing up under constant public curiosity meant navigating school, relationships, and adulthood with an awareness that strangers felt entitled to judge his life. Burke largely withdrew from public discussion, focusing instead on building a private existence away from the spotlight. His silence was not an absence of feeling, but a coping mechanism shaped by trauma, loss, and years of unwanted attention. For decades, he carried both personal grief and public assumptions, waiting until he felt ready to speak on his own terms. Breaking the silence after 28 years. Nearly 3 decades later, Burke Ramsey chose to speak publicly, offering insight into his experiences and emotions surrounding the tragedy. His reflections focused less on speculation and more on the human cost of loss and public scrutiny. He described his sister as joyful and loving, emphasizing memories that had long been overshadowed by controversy. Burke also addressed the investigation's early challenges, expressing frustration over mistakes that limited the possibility of resolution. Rather than assigning blame, his words reflected a desire for clarity, accountability, and renewed efforts using modern forensic methods. Speaking after so many years was not about reopening wounds, but about reclaiming humanity in a story often reduced to theories. His voice added depth to the narrative, reminding audiences that at the center of the case is a family forever changed by loss. Remembering the parents behind the headlines, Burke also spoke with compassion about his parents. John and Patsy Ramsey, whose lives were irrevocably altered by both tragedy and accusation. He described their actions in the aftermath as those of grieving parents navigating unimaginable shock. Public judgment often overlooked the emotional paralysis that accompanies sudden loss, particularly when combined with suspicion. Patsy Ramsey, who passed away in 2006, never lived to see later developments that shifted public perception. John Ramsey has continued advocating for renewed investigation and justice for his daughter. Burke's reflections offered a rare look beyond headlines, portraying parents struggling to survive under extraordinary circumstances. His words encouraged empathy over assumption, reminding audiences that grief does not follow scripts and that public narratives rarely capture private suffering in full. A case still seeking justice. Today, the murder of JonBenet Ramsey remains officially unsolved, a painful reality for her family and a lingering question for the public. Burke Ramsey's decision to speak has not solved the mystery, but it has humanized it. His voice shifted focus away from sensationalism and back toward remembrance, accountability, and the pursuit of truth. Advances in forensic science continue to offer hope that one day, new evidence may provide answers long denied. Until then, JonBenet is remembered not as a symbol or spectacle, but as a child whose life mattered. The story endures not because of controversy alone, but because justice remains unfinished. After 28 years, the world listens again, not just for resolution, but for compassion, understanding, and the dignity every victim deserves.